Hi, welcome to 8-Bit Comedy Hour. I am Michael,
I'm Jacob.
And I'm John.
and we're just three nerds sitting around talking about 8-bit video games, retro video games, pop culture, and trying to make each other laugh. Welcome. Thank you for hanging out.
Good intro.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I've
Real
had a
proud
lot
of
of
you.
practice.
Yeah, I mean, it was your freshman effort, and I think you nailed it. I think next year you should try out for the varsity team.
I'm. You know what? I'm going out for JV.
You're going to do
Freshman year.
JV
Just
first?
going
Okay, I
safe.
respect that.
Play it
Just going
safe.
strong.
I respect
Just
that.
going
Yeah.
strong. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into. Do we want to talk about just things we're into so far this week?
Sure.
Just kind of catch up a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Jacob, why don't you kick us off? What are you into this week?
This week, I mean, it's weird, but like, I've been super into like geeky car stories this week. I don't know why. Like, I've been having a hard time. Yeah, I've been having a hard time sleeping. It's not like stories, but like news. I've been having a hard time sleeping and like
Specifically
late at
related to
night.
cars.
Well, okay. So I browse news feeds when I can't sleep, right? And I'm going through my news feed, and like the first story that I catch that isn't politics or just horrifically depressing is a story on Jalopnik, like the car blog.
Okay.
And I'm just like, oh, sweet. Finally something that's not going to piss me off. And I open it up, and it's a story from like 3 years ago that somehow wound up on my news feed about truck manufacturers complaining and like attacking each other on the materials they use in their trucks. So I went down that rabbit hole for a good like 3 hours that night. And then I just like kept going back to that well. You ever have that where you're like, man, that worked the other night.
This is what I'm jamming on right now.
I'm going back. I'm doing it again.
It's always weird stuff too. Like, so,
yeah, it's always the weirdest shit. And what I came across that's like more topical, more present, is that right now the big like Cold War among truck manufacturers, because apparently that's a fucking thing, is
Truck Cold War.
Right, because they're always trying to one up each other, like best in class on every fucking commercial they can come up with.
Yeah, of course.
The big Cold War is on two fronts, right? Two fronts. Front one, number of gears in transmission.
Okay.
Ford was going to release a 13-gear transmission for their F-150.
We got 13 of them
We got
gears.
13 gears!
That's an odd one though. Why an odd number like that? That seems
that's like
weird. 13 years? Why?
Because
why
it's
not
high-low,
14?
and high-low gets you to 6 at 12, plus you get one crawl gear.
Okay. For when
It's a
you're
four-wheel
towing and
drive, so
stuff,
you get a crawl gear.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
Because the crawl gears are like ridiculous. You can't use it for anything else.
Yeah.
And they were going to drop that into like an F-150.
Okay.
And apparently Chevy was having none of that shit, and they just stuck with like their standard like 7-speed auto or whatever. But then the other thing two that they came out with is there's this new thing in trucks that I had no idea about. Tailgate assistive technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mansplain this to me, please.
I'm going to mansplain the shit out of this. So the long story short is that Americans are too fat to climb into the beds of their trucks now. So they need stairs.
Nice.
So
Finally,
now-
stairs on the bed of a truck.
So
God.
now truck manufacturers are building stairs into the tailgate so that when the tailgate folds down, there's like a second thing that like comes out as little stairs for people.
You know what?
This is awesome.
I'm actually, you know what? I'm actually against this idea. I'm gonna be the first to come out and say I'm against this idea, and here's
You're
why.
not the first. Let me warn you. You're not the first person.
I'm gonna be the first to come out and say that I'm against this, and here's why. Why not a ramp? Why not a fucking ramp? Like, it would be so much more efficient utility-wise to have a ramp.
Stability?
Well, okay, two things. One, John, you're kind of right. Two, Toyota already does the ramp.
Oh, well, that's why Toyota.
So Ford
Japanese,
and Chevy have
man.
to do something completely different.
Yeah.
Like, it's hilarious to look at these things too, because there are all these patent filings that have like the little fucking like stick figure drawn people shown using the item, because part of a patent application is like how it gets used. And these little stick figure people, to me, just look like the embodiment of the fucking infomercial face. Like every single one is like, climbing up into the bed of a truck. It's like you put your hand on the side, you put your foot on the tailgate, and you jump. And that's how you do it. And then these people are all like, handrail, step in the middle. Like,
oh, that's brilliant.
It's fucking hilarious.
That is great.
It fucking cracks me up. So I've been diving deep into that. And of course the place it all started was like truck materials fights between Chevy and Ford about using aluminum in the beds, and like I think that's super geeky on its own, like just a materials engineering geeky thing, but like that eventually led to this rivalry that's turned into fucking stairs. Stairs. They're fighting over stairs now.
That's brilliant.
It kills me.
That is so funny.
That's interesting. So you learn something new too, because that's something I would never go down the rabbit hole on, because I don't care about cars that much, you know.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure.
Well, that's the beauty of friends, man. They teach
exactly. That's what's going on.
Friends are
Speaking of which, John, what are you into this week?
So for me, well, a couple things, because I while thinking of, Jacob's talking about going down the rabbit hole on the internet, on YouTube and stuff. What I've been going on down the rabbit hole recently is conspiracy theory videos.
Ooh.
Particularly, I know, and you can go deep.
That's
deep cuts into this.
That is juicy.
That's so juicy. But recently, have you guys heard of Apex TV?
No,
yeah, I've heard of them, but I've never
might have seen a video. It's from them, because they'll just release anything. They'll basically, if you send in a video and be like, "I'm a time traveler from the year 6000," they'll air it. They'll put it on. But I mean, it's always like at the end, it's like, "Do you believe that this person's a time traveler? Send us your comments." Buy our gear. But that's what it is. It's literally, and it's like, oh, buy our hats and our shirts.
No, I get it.
Buy the swag. Buy the swag.
It's like how
it's like,
fucking merch
because it's like people, it's like random years people say they've time traveled to. It's like, usually it's safe to be like, oh, the year 6000, because you'll never be proven wrong, right?
Right.
Basically. And so they make up all this stuff. It's either a dystopian society or a utopian society, and there's no race anymore. It's all one thing, and everything is in harmony. They don't even speak. It's all telepathic. And then some of them have the balls to be like, I'm from 30 years in the future. So it's
we'll
interesting.
find out.
There was other face blurred and stuff, and these guys ask them questions, and on Apex, these people have been doing Discord interviews and live YouTube interviews.
Okay.
And it's super interesting. So people try to ask them questions like, does Trump get reelected? Does this happen? And stuff like that. And most of the answers oh, well, I can't answer that because that'll be a paradox if you know the answer.
Right.
So it's
sure.
Okay. But then one guy in particular, his name's Noah or something. He was the most recent one.
Okay.
Or he called himself Noah. I don't know.
Sure. But some bullshit like that.
Yeah, or whatever. It doesn't matter. But he would say. But he'd answer some other questions too, and it's how is that not a paradox? And he's like, oh, I researched it and I made sure that if I told people that it wouldn't be a paradox. And it's just it doesn't.
Solid.
It doesn't really make sense, but he claimed.
Okay.
I guess he claimed a couple months ago, he knew, oh, Stephen Hawking's gonna die soon. And it's okay.
Well,
so he was kind of right about that,
Now, did anybody point out that Stephen Hawking's failing health was public knowledge?
Yeah.
Right. This is using old tricks of the.
No, of course it's cold reading. It's just cold reading. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's obviously just cold reading. This is where John Edwards would be today.
Exactly.
You're telling me.
But what's interesting about this is every single person that is these time travelers from the future, or someone who who's from our time but time travel in the future because of secret government experiments and time travel is possible and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. There's no carry all these people, what they say, none of it matches to anything. So it's like so if you have people that are ballsy to say they're within 20 to 30 years they've traveled in the future, anything they say doesn't match the next person.
Yeah.
So it's just like
There's no continuity.
There's no continuity, exactly. But what's funny, and then someone made this, and then this made total sense, and I'm like, damn, I could kind of believe again. Is like, well, of course not, because they're all from because there's the infinite dimensions kind of theory, right? So these are all
infinite
different
realities.
dimensions. It's like, damn it, I believe again.
You lost me for a minute, but you got me back.
Yeah, there's one person made this comment. It's like, you're right. So even if they're wrong in 30 years, that's because they travel into a different dimension in the year 2030 or whatever. It's like, damn it, you're right.
So time travel really isn't possible. It's just interdimensional travel. Technically.
Sure, all of it, yeah.
Why not?
Technically
why
speaking.
not?
So what about the possibility that just they fucked things up?
Yeah.
Right. That
Like,
or that
they
fucked
fucked
up
things
because they
up,
traveled
and
back
now
to
it's different.
things, and now it's different because
They
Exactly.
fucked things
Yeah.
up.
Each person that
I
is
researched. Yeah, but you're the kind of idiot who goes on Apex TV, so you didn't research well.
yeah. So each person like
And also,
you
why do you talk in jargon from the 2010s and you're supposedly from the year 3000?
Yo, what's up, dog? I'm
Yeah.
from the year 6029. Hype?
You can't say hella. That's not going to exist in the year 4000.
Oh, I disagreed. Hella will survive.
Hella will survive. Now, if he's coming back saying he ain't no holla back girl, that's a different story because that shit ain't surviving.
That shit's already dead.
Exactly my point. Exactly my
Okay,
point.
all right, fair.
What
He says
about you?
verily and forsooth. You know something's up.
Yeah.
But what about you, Michael?
So I've gotten into a new hobby with my wife. It's called people watching. I don't know if you've ever done it. So
What is that?
I
Sounds like a new thing I have never
talk
ever
to me
heard
about
of.
it, please.
Tell me more.
Tell me more. So we stumbled across. We were going to Target the other day to buy LaCroix, as you do, and La Croix. And we noticed is we have like these new neighbors and they like fight constantly. They're very, very loud, and they get into like scream fests, right?
Nice.
And so we're always very interested. Like we haven't gotten to the point where we're like peering through the blinds or anything like that, but we're definitely like interested. We won't we'll turn the TV down slightly when they're when they start going at it or whatever.
Mhm.
And so the other day we're going to Target and I see the husband like on the front lawn asleep. Just asleep.
Oh, he got kicked out?
Like asleep, like in a sleeping bag though. Like and
Because
like
why? Because it's too hot to sleep in the car at this point?
no, I don't know. So, well, yeah, it's definitely too hot to sleep in the car. You probably pass out. But it I came up with this entire we came up with this entire backstory on the way to Target, which we just find so hilarious. Where it's basically it's like they're the type of kids that like grew up like with the I'm not touching you thing. Like I'm not touching, and like it just never went away. So now it's now she's like, "Get out of my house, Steve," and he's like, "I'm not in the house, Karen."
It's just on the lawn.
Yeah, just on the lawn, and he sets up
awesome.
he sets up like a pop tent, and, like the sleeping bag, and like a fucking barbecue, and he's just like trying to make like a time for himself, and the kids are inside crying like, "Why can't Dad come in?" And it's like, because your father doesn't know how to put away the fucking laundry. And the kids are like, "But we want to go outside and have the barbecue. It smells good." It's like, "No, eat your goddamn Pop-Tarts,"
Eat your goddamn Pop-Tarts.
It's like, because I mean, clearly, if the man's out there, like, he had a production with the barbecue, so clearly he's the cook in the family.
Right.
But yeah, it just like blew me away. He's just like chilling there, fucking sleeping in a sleeping bag, and it just like. I hope that one day, if Anna ever kicks me out, because I mean it's coming. I hope I have that sort of fortitude to just
wow.
post out on the front lawn.
That got real. That got real.
I need to be honest, you know.
I mean, yeah, let's be real about
but when
this.
you think
Our
about
wives
it,
are
right,
better than us. That's a fact.
100%. But when you think about it too, right? Like how financially responsible was he being? Like he could have gone to a hotel and spent like $60 to $100 for the night.
Or he could have gone to a friend's house.
Yeah, like,
does he have any friends?
Probably not.
Well, no, I would guess
probably not.
Probably
not.
I know a couple places I can go if such an event happened in my life. Like I wouldn't have to sleep in the day on, you know.
Yeah, but also like I'm sure his responsibilities don't go away just because he's kicked out of the house. He's got to drive, you know, the kids to school in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
And like sleeping on the front lawn's got to cut his commute down at least 15
True.
minutes. he gets to sleep in at that point. So
True, got that death commute to the city. Like,
oh man, it'll really do you in.
I just feel like that man has it together because, you know, that's he's being financially responsible. He's being a responsible father, and he's not giving up on his marriage, which I think is very commendable.
Or counterpoint, he was drunk as fuck.
Yeah, that's
I'm more
probably
inclined to believe Jacob on this one, but
he was probably.
I mean,
just drunk.
I appreciate that you see the good in people, Michael.
I do. I do.
So
like,
good for you.
Here's to that.
I do see the. I mean, I want to believe the best in people. But yeah, that's what Anna and I are really into this week. Is our fucking neighbors.
That's fucking great.
That's good. At least it's an activity you're doing together.
I know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, you know, like I mean, what you know, they say that the thing that brings people together is not what they love, but what they hate, and
But what
you
they
know,
hate, yeah,
exactly.
Oh,
And
totally.
so
I totally.
what makes a
100%
marriage
agree.
work better than pointing and laughing at somebody else's failed marriage? So you know,
Exactly.
that's
right.
yeah, that's what's keeping us going.
Exactly right. You gotta keep the love alive through
Gotta
hate.
keep that love alive through hate, man. Hate.
Pure, just that raw hate.
Yeah.
That
but
reminds
yeah.
me, Crazy Neighbors kind of reminds me, like, we had this thing the other day. The house across the street from us has, like, people move in and out fairly often. It's gone through, like, 4 owners in the last year. Like, we don't know what the deal is. But the other day, we heard just, like, cat, like, crying, wailing, screaming, just like, why, God, why? Levels of, like, screaming from the front of the house. And we're like, oh, Jesus. So we like, got dressed and we go outside and we're, like, peeking around our hedge to, like, see across the street to this house. And, like, there's a woman in, like, maybe her 40s or 50s, like, on her knees, like, sobbing, hands in the air,
Wow,
like,
very
yelling
dramatic.
and screaming. And there's, like, a guy in his 20s, like, next to her, like, trying to console her and calm her down. And we walk out into the street. We're like, everything okay? And the guy's like, the dog got out.
Oh my God.
That's it, huh?
And we were both like, okay. And he's like,
well, shit.
yeah, I mean, it'll come back. It always does. We're like, all right. And we just went back inside. And we were like, okay, well, that was weird. 3 days later, we hear the screaming and crying again. And we're like,
Oh no!
Dog
gone.
yeah, exactly. Dog got out.
Did they just?
The root problem is you got to be better at keeping your dog contained.
Yeah,
I guess.
be more responsible about your
your
pet.
Yeah, where is that
Jeez.
hole in the backyard that it's digging
Well,
out?
it wasn't even like their fence is fine. It's not that. It's literally that someone left the door open. And it was like, are you guys that dumb?
Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously,
This is becoming a repeat problem.
This is a problem. Maybe you put a fucking leash on the dog. Like,
Yeah.
right.
This
or
is
close
becoming
the door.
this is becoming a problem for the entire neighborhood now.
I had that happen. I
Yeah.
had that happen to me once when I first got the dog because I was a new dog owner and I kind of trusted him too much and I kind of left the door open. Sure enough, he's running down the street.
Yeah.
That's never happened again.
yeah, no, it doesn't happen
Let
twice.
alone every week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was consistently for like 2 months there. It was like once to twice a week that would happen. And we would we reached the point where we just looked out the window, and if we saw it was that woman, like hands and knees in the front yard, arms raised to God.
She's fine.
We're like, yeah, she's fine. She's fine. She'll be over it in 2 minutes.
Like you guys start coming up with like a neighborhood, kind of like a neighborhood watch thing. So like somebody's just on shift, just waving off like passersby, like she's okay, keep it moving.
She's okay. She's all right.
See here, it's just the dog.
We just put a sign in the front yard that just says the dog got out. It'll come back.
Yeah,
that's all it says. There was we had another neighbor who had this super loud alarm system that sounded like a fucking bank. Like, you know how loud and crazy bank alarms are when they're getting robbed. Well,
sure.
It sounded like he had that on his house because he pissed off some teenagers, and they had taken to like egging his house. So he put in like crazy like motion detectors and lights everywhere, and it was like a nightly occurrence for a while where like they didn't give a shit. They were just gonna throw an egg and run away. They don't care about your fucking alarm.
That's
so
funny.
Like. It would always result in this guy like panicked, running out of his house in his underwear, like, "What the fuck are you kids doing?
It's egg again!
Oh God, it's egg again!
God, you're all gonna die!"
And like that on its own was kind of amusing enough. What was funnier were the times he would set off his own alarm.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Just like while washing his truck, he'd set off his alarm. It's like
that's so
fucking
funny.
God. Yeah.
That is freaking hilarious.
Nothing like the despair of other people and other marriages to bring you and your wife closer together.
Oh yeah.
100%.
Oh my God. Your marriage is strong as ever whenever you see those other people like, oh, he's sleeping on the grass. My marriage is pretty good.
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right.
Yeah, I mean,
still sleep in the
really picks up your day.
same bed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, hey, I'm on the couch tonight, but I didn't fuck up grass sleep bad.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't get grass sleep. Yeah.
I didn't get kicked onto the fucking lawn.
That's fucking brilliant.
That's good. Well, should we segue into the main topic?
Into the actual fucking topic.
So today we're talking Metroid, the Metroid series, classic
series.
NES. Started in NES. Classic 8-bit space pirate action adventure. Later.
Well, she's not a space pirate.
She's a bounty hunter.
She's a bounty hunter.
She's a bounty
hunter. Which
John
but it
knows
is because John read the Wikipedia.
Oh, I have it up right here. I could go on. I can
released in 19.
As of September 2012, the Metroid series had sold over 17.4 million copies.
Jesus, that few? I would expect it to have sold more, to be honest.
I mean, it seems like it's kind of third. It's always going to be third tier to like Mario and Zelda, right?
Yeah. Well,
That's
it is
true.
kind of.
Not to say that it's third. Like,
no.
third
I know
best,
what you mean.
But,
It's absolutely it is the third pillar of.
But it's the third. It's kind
Nintendo
of the
franchise.
in a way it's kind of the brainchild of the two. Because it takes the platforming of the Mario series and the open world of the Zelda series and combines them.
Solving more of the Zelda series. Exactly.
And it really was the first game to like put those together in its own game. And I mean, it's a brilliant series.
It's great. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it spawned along with Castlevania. It spawned its own genre. I mean,
the Metroidvania as
a genre. I mean, and basically, without Metroidvania, I don't think you ever get roguelikes either. But
Yep. And then not only that, but it pioneered a lot of things. It was one of the first games to feature the female protagonist, which there were only two ways apparently you could find out that Samus was a girl. And one was if you had the code to take off her suit.
Yep.
And two was if you beat the game in under 5 minutes, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the time was exactly, but it was a crazy speed.
Or not 5 minutes. Maybe it was like 5 hours, something like that.
Yeah, like
I don't know if you could beat that in 5 minutes. I mean, you could.
No, not without some kind of weird map glitching. But
yeah.
Map glitches weren't like a common thing then.
Because I think there's a couple, but I mean, I don't know if people knew that. Like I've seen I kind of I don't know if you guys like are into this the speed, the retro game like speed running scene at all. I mean, not that I like actually do it, but
was
like
one of the first
but as
to
an,
have it
as
though
an
with
observer.
Mario, like
But I
Metroid
think there's a
Mario.
couple. I was watching. There's a YouTuber. He's a speed runner, and he goes by Summoning Salt, and he does little documentaries on the history of speed running of certain games.
Yeah.
So there's a Metroid one, of course, and I believe in that video they're talking about some map glitching that's used. I mean, it all depends on what's allowed, and there's different divisions of the
Rules,
competitive play,
yeah.
like no glitching, and that kind of thing. But
yeah, that's awesome.
But it's a
another thing that I think is really cool about the Metroid series is something that I didn't really notice. Like I think it's a huge part of the series, but I didn't notice until I actually read it. Is that especially in the original, there really isn't much background music. Like the background music is kind of indistinguishable from sound effects.
It's kind of dark, ominous thing.
Yeah,
sort of.
it's just kind of And then the only time you actually hear the original like theme is if you beat the game, which is kind of cool. Yeah, and then go ahead.
I was gonna say Metroid is interesting for me because I never played the originals when I was younger. Like when they actually were out, I was more of a Mario person.
Mm-hmm.
So Metroid I didn't really play till later. Actually, the first Metroid games I played were actually the Metroid Prime trilogy when they made the switch to the very controversial switch to first person.
It's so controversial.
So controversial, but you know what? That trilogy rocks.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
It's incredibly good, yeah.
And I don't think those other games could do that. You couldn't do Zelda first person, like first person shooter, or Mario first person shooter,
No, it was clearly the choice. Like it was the game, the franchise to do that with. But it was brilliant because it kind of paved the way for first person story driven or like platform, puzzle driven games. Like without that, I don't think you get games like Borderlands or Destiny, modern first person shooters that do a little bit. Jay's like messing.
I'm so sorry. I'm having to. It did this automated shit to me a minute ago. No, my problem is that it did this automated shit to me a minute ago, and all of a sudden my whole screen got super fucking dark, and now I'm just.
Oh yeah, mine has that problem as well. Like I put the light up to me, and then it immediately
I just see
goes.
Jacob's camera.
I'm just fucked. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. No,
just
it's fine.
Just ignore it.
Yeah,
I'll get it
this
eventually.
is not going to be distracting at all.
No, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't distract you in the least. You're a professional.
No, okay, now it looks like a porno. It's like that low lighting.
Continue on your point.
Right. So yeah, it just it paved the way for a lot of my favorite modern genres. Like first person looter shooters.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, the Metroid Prime series wasn't a looter shooter, but it was a story-driven first-person shooter with puzzles, with upgrades. The only thing it was missing was a freaking skill tree.
Yeah, totally.
And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we see something similar to that in the fourth one that's slated to come out for the Switch.
That's part of it's Metroid Prime?
It is Metroid Prime. Yeah,
it's going to be.
Prime? It is slated as Metroid Prime 4.
Oh, awesome!
That is the official working title right now.
Good. Prime 3 was just a fucking incredible game.
Corruption,
the one for one for Wii, right? Yeah, that one.
Really
yeah,
that was the one I remember the most too.
Yeah, well, because what they did was they took the first two because the hardware was so similar to a GameCube. Ultimately, they just took the first two and they just put them on Wii in a trilogy with Corruption. And it was just such a good, solid trilogy, a great set of games.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant.
It really nailed the attitude of Metroid while still being something different.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Totally. By being something drastically different almost.
It's way different, yeah. way
this
more
is closer to GoldenEye than it is to
Yeah.
almost
in a lot of ways. Like once you get into I think it was really brilliant how they incorporated things like the ball, the morph ball.
Yeah.
Things like that, where they like you could. Yeah, what's funny is like I don't know if you guys have played any of the new Mario Odyssey, the new Switch.
No,
Mario.
I don't have a Switch. I would love to though because I am diehard Mario fan.
You are,
so
in fact,
they
yes.
do a lot of things where they like in pretty much every world you go into, they there's some sort of kind of. I don't want to say it's a gimmick, but it's like a thing.
Yeah, but
where...
the hat with the hat, right? Where you can turn into stuff with the hat and stuff.
Yeah,
But
there's that.
There's
but,
mechanics in every world.
But there's a thing where you'll go into, like you'll go into a pipe, and all of a sudden you'll be in like 2D, like 8-bit Mario, like Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah,
and it'll be like a custom built level, like for that thing.
Yeah.
And it's like brilliantly done the way they do it. Like they'll have things where like you'll have to go into a pipe, in one area of the map, complete something, come out, go into the 3D world, go into another pipe somewhere else, do something, and to have it like unlock areas and stuff like that. It's really cool. But I feel like that had to have been inspired because it reminds me a lot of when you would go into the Morph Ball in the Prime series, and then all of a sudden you'd be in like basically a side scroller puzzle game,
right,
where you had to like go through and like blow yourself up, boom, 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 boom.
I never thought of it that way. That's a good observation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just like whenever I think about obviously that was a little bit more less obvious of like a nudge to the past, but I liked how they made that. They made a couple puzzles basically like side scrollers and very similar to the original. Instead of trying to do something like way out there, I just thought that was kind of a cool touch for the Metroid series for the that one. The games are just really good, man. Like I wish I wish that it was a little bit more of a higher profile. Like it's so weird to say that like, oh, Metroid's not a high profile game because it's one of like
it
the
kind of is
greatest...
not because they don't. I mean, the frequency in which they release like main story games for Metroid is way less because you have a lot of side things like they did Metroid Other M, which I believe is the remake of the original but for Game Boy Advance.
No, that's Zero Mission.
Oh, I'm talking about Zero Mission.
That's
I'm
Zero
sorry,
Mission.
Zero
Yeah, that's
Mission.
Zero
Other
Mission.
M is like a DS game that's like
Other
side
M.
scroller.
No, Other M is a completely different thing.
Okay.
Is it?
Other M is a
yeah.
weird like survival horror game.
Ah.
Samus is not in her suit in Other M.
Oh, this is a Wii game
it's just her like running around doing her thing.
I was confused.
She's walking around in a fucking leotard, and it's supposed to be like a psychological thriller kind of thing about
right.
Her relationship with the Metroids.
Was this the one that
Interesting.
pissed everyone off too?
Yes.
Because it's also a different thing, and they're
Yes.
like, "Oh, Samus is like a little bitch now" or something.
Yeah, they made her really kind of a weak character, and it was just kind of like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what it is. Like they wanted to do something different with the IP, I guess, but
I mean, they were trying something.
yeah. I mean, you got to give
Really
Nintendo credit for that. They do try things. Like
Yeah,
they will
it's like,
they'll absolutely take
They did
risks.
the first-person shooter thing, and it worked out. So like, why not?
Yeah.
You know.
I wouldn't even be like against like that being a portion of a Metroid game where like Samus gets out of her suit for whatever reason, and like there's kind of a like she's a lot more like. Say what you will, she's always going to be more vulnerable outside of her suit. She's a human. I mean, you don't have to make her like scared or anything like that, but you can definitely make it a lot more like, interesting. I think they could do a lot with that narrative, and do like a Dead Space type level or something like, something like that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Like, and I don't have any issues with the idea of Other M. I think it's just the execution.
The execution is poor.
Where it should have been. The execution was poor.
For sure.
Well, especially coming after the Prime trilogy, like.
Oh yeah.
That's
no, you following right on the heels of the Prime trilogy. Well, that's also when they made like 17 Metroids for the DS. There's like there's at least 3, and They're not great.
There's Zero Mission. That's the DS remake of the
original.
Then it's like
there's like Hunters or something.
Yeah, Metroid Prime Hunters. Federation Force.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually I'm not familiar with any of those ones at all.
I've played Hunters. It's fine.
It's okay.
It doesn't feel like a Metroid game because you're
Right.
not playing as Samus. You're playing as like one of a collection of bounty hunters. It's
It's a 4-player co-op game focusing on missions.
Yes.
Yep.
It also features a mode called Metroid Prime Blast Ball.
Yeah. It's not good.
That is.
I mean, ultimately, it's just not good. It's not a Metroid game.
Do you think they're going to try and put some sort of multiplayer in Prime 4?
I hope so.
Sure, why not?
I hope so. I hope there's some form of multiplayer in there. I don't necessarily want it to be... So...
Are you looking for like multiplayer co-op, or are you looking for multiplayer like...
I would want something more along the lines of co-op. However, this is where it gets weird, because you couldn't do like co-op Zelda, because there's one protagonist and that's central to the plot.
There is some sort of co-op Zelda with, there was like a Game Boy Advance game. Was it like
Four Swords?
Four Swords, right?
There's 3 of those that feature co-op stuff.
Yeah, like the Minish Cap or something like that.
Yeah, the Minish Cap, Four Swords, and there's one other one. I can't remember it right now. So like there are roadmaps for it. I think those worked because they were handheld titles and they didn't take themselves seriously as part of the main canon.
Not as a main.
I think you get into trouble when you have like long-standing solo protagonist and you try to like, hey, now there's 2 of you. Like, you can't have
miraculously, you guys have
some quick thing like Samus gets cloned or something.
Samus
you do this on your own, Samus, but there's no one better than you. We gotta clone you, you know.
Right, but
they could do the route of I could just say they could just do the route of Uncharted 4 and be like, oh, by the way, you have a brother that we.
Oh yeah, by the way, you have a brother that you never heard about once, but you knew about the entire time.
Yeah.
Even though you were supposedly an orphan from a very young age, living alone on the streets of some fucking Spanish city.
No, you were an orphan with a brother.
Yeah. Anyway, my quick tangent about the power suit and about cloning Samus. The power suit's one of a kind.
Yeah.
Because it was custom built for her by the bird people, the Chozo. Okay, can we take a second on that also? She was raised by literal birds.
So it's like, is we talking about like Bird Person from Rick and Morty?
Yes, Bird Person. We're talking Bird Person.
Birdman. Yeah, Birdman.
We are talking Phoenix Person. That's what we're talking about. You know, we're talking like she was raised by birds. They taught her everything she knows.
Yeah. Like, and fucking Ridley killed her parents.
Yeah, man.
I didn't know that. I didn't freaking know that.
That's what starts
for like
it all.
A long time. Yeah, Ridley the giant space dragon kills her parents.
Ridley the space dragon, which is
he's a space dragon. He's a giant space dragon.
A fucking space dragon, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But honestly, most things in Metroid, if you think too much about them, just don't work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like it's a sci-fi saga. It's a space saga. Like I and that's what I love about it. Like I'm
need to make sense the whole time.
I'm a huge sci-fi nerd, and I love just space epics and sagas and stuff like that. And that's like, and I love how the stories have progressed. Like the first game Metroid takes place on one planet, like in the caves of one planet, which is such a badass like entry to the universe. And then you start. I believe Metroid 2 they go to 3 planets.
Are you talking about because the Metroid 2 Return to Samus is the Game Boy one, and then
I'm talking about Super. I'm talking Super Metroid. Yeah, Metroid.
Yeah, Return to Samus is kind of like Link. It's kind of like Zelda 2. You can't really count it.
Yeah,
because it was also for Game Boy too.
Yeah, well, most Nintendo titles like
they redid it for 3DS.
Just don't really count. Like Mario 2, Zelda 2, like none of them count.
Yeah, no, they don't fucking count.
Yeah, you go straight from NES to Super, whatever it was. But yeah, Super Metroid, I believe they're on 3 planets, and then you get to Prime where you're all over the fucking place. You're just all over the place.
Although I want to say in the first Prime game, you're not on multiple planets. You're on a single planet again. It's just that planet is fucked up and has a shitload of different biomes.
Yeah, but don't you also you start on? If I remember correctly, don't you start on like a ship?
Yeah, but that's just the narrative function to get you to lose your armor.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Because
It
you've got to have
felt
that
kind
like ability reset at the beginning.
yeah,
somehow.
of course. It was just like,
And that's
oh
just how they
no,
Oh no, I lost
You know.
all my shit,
Oh,
even though it was
no.
attached to me.
Yeah.
I
Wah, wah.
almost
you
feel
know,
like
you know what I just want to do. I want one day. I want for a developer to like start a game, like a sequel to a game, where the protagonist like starts off and he's like, you know what, all this shit, I don't need it. I survived once before without it. I'll do fine. I'll figure it out along the way, and just like throws it away. Just like all his gear, just throws it away. Like that's how he like.
that's
just
how
like,
it starts.
I'm just a badass. Like I don't
I'm gonna
need
do
it.
all over again. It's gonna
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like you're in like the Assassin's Creed series. Like this blade, don't need it. Psh, don't need it.
This finger, don't need it.
Just I'm done. Don't need it. I think that would be brilliant.
That would be actually really fucking funny.
It would be really
I also
funny.
like the notion of something super self-aware about the fact that they're only doing it so that there can be that growth curve. And so like right at
Just
the
super
beginning,
meta.
like they're like guy comes through the doorway, he's all fucking ripped and jacked, and he's carrying like 7,000 guns, and then you just hear like the sad trombone just wah wah, and all of it just disappears.
And
And
he's
it's like,
"Ugh."
now play the game, and he's like, oh fuck, and he's like all
God
scrawny
damn
and
it.
shit again.
Isn't this
Yeah.
self-aware breaking the fourth wall crap? Why everyone hates Last Jedi?
No, do we hate the Last Jedi?
Oh,
Dude.
no, I don't hate Last Jedi, but this is
So
a
it's
complaint.
like- I loved it, and I don't think it broke the fourth wall.
No, it
break
didn't.
the fourth- It didn't break the fourth
It
wall.
just
but
became a
it was-
Disney movie. That's
it
all.
became too comedic for some people's tastes.
But that's the thing, though. It didn't become too comedic. What happened is it became a fucking Disney movie. Like it became a Marvel franchise movie. It became.
It
That's
did.
how they make their
was-
movies. Like you had, like I actually fully expected it going in, and I like that they started it off that way.
Yeah.
Like at least they were honest about it right up front. Like the first scene is a giant troll.
Is it?
Like it's
right.
just
Yeah.
it's just Poe trolling an Imperial officer, you know, and it's
Yeah.
just like it sets the tone. It's like, hey guys, if you were expecting something super super dark and serious, like no, like
That's not what's gonna
no,
happen.
no, go watch, you know, Rogue One. like that's not what this is.
But
I
to be
guess
honest, okay, go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say, I guess my point, because that's obviously a huge tangent I just put us on. But I guess my point was, if people can't handle that, they're not gonna be able to handle a Metroid Prime game that's that aware.
So what you're saying, John, is if you can't handle me at my Last Jedi, you don't deserve me at self-aware Metroid Prime.
Yes, that's exactly
Okay.
Very
what
true.
I'm
All
saying.
right.
Very true.
All right.
Full
It's a very poetic way you said that. Yeah.
Full circle. The circle.
It's a
Synergy.
circle.
That's exactly
It's
the-
a circle.
The circle of trust. No, but okay. So I thought that I was fine with the tone of Last Jedi
Yeah, so was
going
I.
in that direction. Mostly because Star Wars movies have always been a product of their time and a
Yeah,
product of
100%.
prevailing like writing tendencies of their generation. So like I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. I love the original trilogy,
Of
but
course.
it's really clear the cinematic choices that Lucas made that have aged poorly or that have dated themselves to the era in which he originally shot the films.
Sure.
And like, I'm fine with those existing and continuing to exist in new entries. Like, that's not what I'm going to complain about.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was a fan. I thought Last Jedi was good.
I
It
thought
did
it,
everything
I thought it
needed
was
to do.
I thought it was great too. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd say my only complaint would be like, you know, it ran really long and you could
Mhm.
tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know.
There,
And you
there
could
was
tell. So the
definitely a
pacing
lot
was
of
a little janky, but otherwise like
Yeah.
because there was some stuff like you can cut down, like the whole casino planet. I understand the point they're trying to make, but also just kind of like it's kind of like the.
It was a huge detour.
It's almost like the the Trade Federation Wars in the prequel trilogy. It's kind of like we don't.
It's
care.
an aside. It's a
we don't care really.
It's an absolute MacGuffin, and you don't need to spend this much time showing it to us.
Yeah.
Like it's a mechanism to accomplish what you want. You don't need to develop it this much.
Yeah.
It's space opera. We will
buy it at face value. It's like, oh, they have to go to a casino planet and they don't end up getting the guy they thought they were going to get. Cool.
They wind up in prison. They get this other guy. Like, okay, cool. I don't need like 40 minutes of that. I need like 15.
Yeah, exactly.
But segueing back on topic, sort of, space opera, I think Metroid could make, well, maybe not a space opera, but I think Metroid would make a pretty good sci-fi movie. It could be.
It'd be pretty.
No, it would absolutely be space opera. Actually,
yeah.
And it would definitely be
a space.
But it could be pretty. It could be pretty dark in tone, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things. Like that one seems like you can make that work. Because other video game, if we go on to the topic of like video game movies or something, I feel like Metroid could be one
pull it off.
Pull it off.
I feel like a lot of recent entries have done a decent job of being okay movies, but that there's been a real struggle in writing to capture the magic of what made the game work.
Right.
So like you'll have these big top tier. It's the reason I wouldn't ever want like an Uncharted movie.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, because basically Uncharted is a movie, but also because like I don't feel like the writing, if you compressed even one of the Uncharted stories down to 2 hours, I feel like the writing would lose the magic.
I feel like what I would love to see more than anything else, I think Metroid would be up there. Because I think the other would be Legend of Zelda. I think those two would make really, really good games.
The thing is, I think Metroid would be more obtainable, but I don't think anyone wants to touch making Zelda with a 10-foot pole because nobody will be satisfied. Because you're either going to sacrifice the magic for the story or the magic of the game that you were mentioning, Jacob, for like for a good cinematic movie. That's going to piss off the other people. Then if you make it too, but if you make it too focused on like, oh, this is for fans of the game, then you get 5 people the other people. So I think no one wants to touch that with a 10-foot pole because also it's going to be similar to Lord of the Rings too, like and kind of that.
Yeah. I think that's probably the bigger challenge is making it a little different from other fantasy movies that are like really popular right now, like the Lord of the Rings, or even, I mean, like pretty much mostly Lord of the Rings. But the thing that I think Zelda and Metroid do have going for them is while there's a lot of like rich backstory, the story in the games aren't as like in your face. There's a lot of room for interpretation. Zelda especially, like
Zelda has no continuity.
Well, so the thing is like the fan theory at this point
the fans have created a continuity, but
there's also an alternate theory that like each story is just a different generation's telling of the same story. Like it's all one story, and it's just becoming a game of telephone where every time a new generation tells it, it becomes a little different. Things change. I love that. I think that's really poetic and beautiful, and I think it's a great way to like to kind of bring it all together and at the same time allow for differences. And a cinematic version could be just that exact thing where like as long as you have kind of the main elements there,
it doesn't matter. So I mean,
it doesn't matter.
A good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
That was a point that that someone made, that if you view Zelda as only having 2 actual real world entries, Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild, and everything else happens somewhere in between those 2 on a timeline. If you only view those 2 as the real world events, kind of everything else is Link's fever dream while he's waiting to wake up in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, it's just him reliving the story of. It's
In
him
different
reliving the
ways.
story of Skyward Sword in different ways and in like different reimaginings and
through
stuff
the
like that.
mythology and reimaginings of the world around him.
Yeah, which is a similar. Yeah, it's basically the same concept of.
Same concept, yeah. I mean, they're legends, they're stories. You
Yeah,
know,
I mean,
not...
yeah, it's in the title. It's the Legend of Zelda. It's. And that's one of the things that's like I don't know if they ever intended it that way. It would be kind of boss if that was like Nintendo's plan. It's like, yeah,
from like the 1980s.
1985. It's like, yeah, actually there was never any plan for continuity. We were just gonna redo the same game over and over again, and that's how we do it.
With the martini glass in hand.
Exactly.
I like the idea of Shigeru Miyamoto wearing a Napoleon outfit, sipping a martini, telling everyone how it is. I really like that idea.
I think didn't Miyamoto try to sort of explain continuity, but not all the games really fit in
Nothing
there.
fits. Nothing fits. That's
nothing
the problem.
really fits. People have created their own timeline and have gotten maybe like 80% of the games in there.
So
I don't know what that timeline is. I forget. I've watched videos on it.
I mean, I'm sure it kind of works.
Yeah.
I own a copy, and I think, Michael, you own a copy because I gifted one to you at one point. Hyrule Historia.
Yes.
That is the official Nintendo timeline of The Legend of Zelda.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense.
At all.
It makes no sense. Like, you read through it, you're like, but this doesn't follow that, and that character can't exist if this happened, and it just doesn't make sense. So you have to explain it away somehow. Like,
yeah. Well, and in each iteration, like each iteration kind of adds something new. The way Breath of the Wild kind of explains it, it's very subtle, but they basically kind of support that fan theory of like everything else is just like stories that have been told, and like this is the official one. Or they will like they it's kind of that, but it's also kind of a matter of like Ganon's come back several times to like try and like take over the world or take over Hyrule. And you've stopped him.
Which is the world.
Which is the world, yeah. And you've stopped him several times. And it was only this last time that you go into your coma or whatever. But they even mention at one point, because there's a race of characters that look like Ganon from Ocarina of Time, like that kind of like Mediterranean, like Middle Eastern,
the Gerudo,
kind of the Gerudo. But like they look like that, and there's a line one of the characters says that's like at one point Ganon took on our form, and we're gonna pay him back for that. Like that's their whole grudge against Ganon, is that like he ruled the world looking like them once. Which I think is
he was an asshole, and he made us look bad.
Yeah, it's like
so we're gonna fuck
pay.
That guy.
Yeah, but I just think that would be. I think that would be really beautiful. I think, and Metroid's a little bit more continuity. It definitely has continuity, but it also doesn't like. There's not a lot you can you can tell a story without really fucking it up. Like as long as you have Samus there, as long as she's trying to stop space pirates from using Metroids to take over the world, like you got it.
It doesn't even have to have space pirates or Metroids to be a decent Metroid story.
Not necessarily, but like if you're gonna make a movie, like you have to do like you just have to do it.
Yeah. That's true. So to kind of stay on the Metroid topic, I had this thought. So Metroid was one of the first serious video games and like decent sized video games to feature a female protagonist in a like really strong, powerful role. Like her role isn't like, I'm going to be the smart, sensitive one. It's like, no, I'm just going to fucking blow shit up. Like,
yeah, shit needs getting done. I'm going to do
shit needs blowing up. I'm here with my gun arm. Let's do it. She is in fact the Ash of her universe.
Okay. Very true.
Boomstick, fistful of boomstick. But it got me thinking, right? What are some other things that have traditionally been dominated by one, gender or the other that could use a good like switch, could use a good change up?
I think we're starting to see a lot of that. I think for a while.
I mean, I'm not going social commentary here. I'm just going like,
no,
what's some piece of shit?
Right.
Yeah.
Something that's existed for say like James Bond being a woman or black or something.
I mean,
I'm totally down with either of those.
Yeah, exactly.
Doctor Who is a big one. I am so
because they did,
pumped for Doctor Who becoming a woman. Like I have not.
That actress is amazing.
She's phenomenal.
She's
I'm pumped that they got a fantastic actress, which I expected them to because they've had really quality actors. Since Tennant, basically. Not to say that.
Eccleston.
He's okay.
He's a good actor. He's okay. I feel like they had.
I feel like his heart wasn't in it. That's all.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
I feel like his heart wasn't in it.
Absolutely.
But
he thought it was going nowhere.
Yeah, I feel he was just like, yeah, I can do this to like tide me over for the year, and we'll be good, you know. But
it's like watching Jason Statham in Ghosts of Mars. Like he just doesn't give a shit. It's
you just you're phoning it in. But they've had like these really great characters, and I'm super excited that they're taking that change. Because there's just like it's gonna give the character a fresh perspective. We're gonna like the first episode's gonna be a lot of like awkward, you know, borderline sexist jokes. I got my period, you know, like I don't know, some bullshit
like that. Yeah.
Some bullshit like that.
Some old bullshit.
Just like, oh god, is this what it's like? You know, just like she's just miserable the entire episode. It's like this is what it's like. It'd be terrible. But
why does nobody take me fucking seriously?
Exactly. That would be the whole if the entire series, like her part of the series is just like nobody takes her seriously anymore, even though she's the doctor.
She is the fucking doctor. She is the oncoming storm.
The oncoming storm. Yeah, exactly. It's like nobody takes her seriously anymore, which would be interesting because that's like.
That would be an interesting challenge to present the Doctor with, too.
So, no, exactly. So that's one of the things that's been brilliant about the show is, like, they're constantly having to basically, like, as much as you reset the actor, you have to reset the Doctor somehow. You have to have that, going back to our original thing, like, he has to lose his powers, right? Because the Doctor is built up so much reputation and so much like gravitas, you know, throughout the years.
Yeah.
That like just the mention of his name sends fucking like armies running. And how do you go from that? Because it's such a badass moment in Matt Smith's one of my favorite moments, even though like I love David Tennant's series, that's one of my favorite moments in the new thing is when the Pandorica is about to open. Hundreds of thousands of armies are there, like surrounding planet Earth, and they all have their guns trained on Stonehenge, and they're like basically about to take the Pandorica by force. Doctor gets up with a mic and he's like, "Listen, you know who the fuck I am. Come at me, bro." And they all just bail. They're just like, you know, and it's just such a badass moment because it's like that's right, that's who he is. He's built this reputation of taking down the craziest, biggest bads of the universe with nothing more than a screwdriver, and he does it every time. But then you get into like later on, you know, it's just like, well, what do you go? Where do you go from there? And you have
I feel like there's always range, and you do need that reset.
Well, they did.
Again,
and they did
I feel like this is an opportunity for a sad trombone that just never gets used. Just during the regeneration, you just need to hear that just wah, wah, just over the top of it.
Well,
We've lost John.
I think.
A little bit. I mean, I'm listening, but I don't watch Doctor Who, so I can't contribute.
You should. It's really good.
All right. So instead, John, What's your idea for something
what's your idea?
that's traditionally followed one role that could be switched to a different gender
Oh,
role?
the James Bond thing popped up, like a female James Bond. I mean, I guess you have to change the name, but
dude,
I
mean,
think that would be cool.
that's what
Jane Bond.
That's what they said. Like that's what Atomic Blonde was supposedly. I didn't see it.
I never saw that. I didn't.
It's on HBO right now. I need to check.
I mean, I should go watch it, but I've heard from people I trust that while fun to watch, was not great.
Okay.
So I'll eventually watch it, but.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I would love, like, I've gotten really into female protagonists in video games.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see more games that feature badass femme fatales, as it were.
Well, you guys went really serious. The first place my mind went was Men Ups, which are basically pin-up calendars, but with men. Now, you may think to yourself, but we've had like the firefighter calendars and
exactly.
No, because those are just dudes in their underwear. I'm talking like full-on pin-up style shoots, but with dad bods, right? So like
dad bods, okay.
Yeah, so like a guy on the swing set with like the pose and like all the ridiculous pin-up poses, but dudes.
Okay. So
Men Ups.
But so that's just a comedic. Like you want it to be funny, you want it to be not taken seriously at all.
What do you mean not taken seriously at all? You take pinups seriously?
Some people do.
Yeah. Most
there's
people.
a
who doesn't take a pinup? Well, I don't mean like fetishizing, but like who doesn't take a pinup seriously? Who looks at a pinup as like, haha, that's funny. No, come on, let's start this trend.
Yeah, but then if you start doing that with dad bods. Like that's
no, only if they're doing it to be goofy. I'm saying, well, you do it with dad bods because it's supposed to represent like what people look like, not like what the hottest of the hot look like. That was always the idea of pinups, is that they're like
normal
actual people.
I mean, that's kind of what like.
But Men Ups, I'm standing by it. It's going to take
Men Ups.
Hashtag Men Ups. You know.
I can get behind it.
That's good.
Okay.
So I'm gonna need the two of you to contribute.
Yeah. So if we're going
more products in the same line.
In that vein, I want. Trying to think of something that's not incredibly sexist. Like everything that's popping in my head is just super sexist. Like, I want more female mechanics. It's like that's.
But let me tell you something. Final Fantasy 15 was bad.
Yeah.
Female mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
That's the joke.
Yeah. But she wasn't.
She was good at her job.
She was good at her job. She just had like a odd choice in
odd wardrobe
apparel.
choices.
Yeah.
I feel like
the Daisy Dukes.
I almost feel like she didn't make her own wardrobe choices. Strangely.
You feel like her dad.
No, I feel like some horny programmers in Japan made her wardrobe choices. Is what I feel like.
Like her dad that like sits. Her dad that like because her dad's like at the shop sitting on like the porch.
This is going sour
in a fucking
fast,
lawn
boys.
chair. And he's like,
bail out.
Bail out.
Like, I just now I can't. Now I hope that was the case. That he was like, here's the uniform. It's like, Dad, these are.
What
Dad,
the fuck?
Dad,
actually,
put it on.
In defense of John's point that we need to bail on that. He's not actually her dad.
He's not?
No, her parents were killed, I think, in war.
Oh.
Right? Her parents were killed and he adopted her.
Was he? Did he? Oh, I thought maybe he was like her uncle or something.
Yeah, like her uncle or like.
Which is even funnier because then
it's even funnier if it's her uncle.
Like,
yeah.
Put this on.
Here, put this on. It's the uniform for Hammerhead.
Because I retired.
I'm the manager. I'm not the mechanic anymore. This is the mechanic uniform.
This is the mechanic.
That doesn't make sense. This offers no protection. Shut up and work.
Like, what are you fighting fires? You're a mechanic.
What are you doing? What? It's like you're worried you're gonna get oil on you or something.
Listen, I'm not gonna spend a bunch of a bunch of hard-earned money on cleaning bills for a bunch of laundry. Like takes it to a financial place. Like what if he's not a pervert? He's just incredibly cheap.
Incredibly cheap.
He's like, I'm not gonna waste all my money on a bunch of laundry bills.
You can protect yourself.
You know how much? You know how much a single load of laundry costs in this place?
Waste
It's
not,
like-
want not.
It's like
You
100.
know we're in a drought, Missy.
Yeah, it's like
Shut up and eat your
120
goddamn
gil.
Pop-Tarts.
It's 120 gil. I can get a bowl of rice and some fish for that. Like, I'm not gonna waste that on laundry.
Just for that, you're sleeping on the grass.
Just for that, you're sleeping on the grass. And that's what we call a callback.
Well, that's why I did eat your goddamn Pop-Tarts.
Eat your
Exactly.
goddamn Pop-Tart.
I followed your
You
lead.
think
I know,
You
you
think
did,
I
you did. I
slave
appreciate
away for Pop-Tarts?
All right,
Pop-Tart money?
so that's Michael's horrible gender swap. Was a mechanic.
No,
I mean-
I said I didn't want to do that because I thought it was incredibly sexist.
Well,
I was
okay.
trying to
Take
think of
30 more
something.
seconds while John comes up with something.
All right.
I have to come up with another one.
We all come up with one.
I already said James Bond female.
Yeah, but that wasn't ridiculous product.
Oh, it has
That
to be
was like actual
ridiculous?
thing you
Ooh.
want.
Ooh. I know what I want. I know what I want.
Okay, what you got?
I
Hit
want
me.
a female late night talk show host.
Ooh, that right.
But that's an actual thing to want, though.
Yeah, like that's why I want it.
Okay.
Like
I thought-
like major network style.
All right,
you know,
I
because you
see.
Yeah,
have
like-
my
I
premise
want-
here.
I know it was supposed to be something silly, like excuse me for coming
know,
up with
we're-
something political.
yeah.
But that's just what I want.
Getting
So
too
no, I
serious.
just think about
Too
like I
serious.
just
Too much. No, it's great. I like it. I want.
I think about I want it. Who would I have? Ooh.
Who do you have in mind?
Top of my head would be Sarah Silverman right now.
See, the thing is, I don't like Sarah Silverman, but
Oh,
she
she's
would be good
brilliant.
at that. She would be
She's
really good at
so brilliant.
that. No, she's very smart. She's very like quick-witted. I just don't
like her
find
comedy.
her comedy funny.
There's an
I
an
mean, the
uncomfortableness
comedy's-
about it that's done on purpose. That's kind of
Yeah.
you know,
I know, and my thing is that like that's her shtick,
yeah.
Yeah.
and like I just don't find that to have the legs to work. Like, okay, you'll get me to giggle at one joke, and then I'm gonna not like the rest of your set because this is your joke. Like,
Yeah. But I love her. I think she's brilliant, and I've gotten super into her comedy lately.
Did you watch her show? She had a show. I don't know if it's still on. I think it was on Hulu.
I've
It was
got
called "I Love You, America."
Yeah, I've caught a couple
America.
episodes, but she has a new Netflix special that I'm super into.
Oh,
I
a
think
new
it's
stand-up special?
Yeah, a new stand-up special, which is really good. It's
Yeah.
called like Specks of Dust or something like that.
So much
Yeah.
stand up on Netflix. That's like
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what that's
their
what they're like
thing.
second best at is like
yeah,
stand-up.
man, you
They're
buy
brilliant.
3 cameras, you hire Bo Burnham, and you got yourself a stand-up special.
Yeah,
Done.
how did Bo Burnham get into directing stand up?
Oh man.
Like how did that
I think
happen?
honestly,
'Cause
like
also, I
look-
want to see a new stand-up special from Bo Burnham. It's been a while, right?
I know.
Like,
Yeah, I want to
Well,
see
no,
him.
he's
Make-
too
doing
busy
his stuff.
directing. He's too
Make
busy
Happy,
directing.
Make Happy was like
Make
a
Happy
year
was for
ago.
a reason. Yeah, Make
But that
Happy
was the thing.
feel
I
like
think
it was
that's
long.
what
Make
got him
Happy
into
was
it.
also really dark.
It was,
It was good,
yeah,
though.
it was
It's
brilliant. It was
Oh, it's
brilliant,
great.
and it was incredibly well directed. Like as
Mhm.
a stand up comedy special goes,
Yeah.
like it was just really well thought out as a well done show, and I think that's kind of what got him into doing that. I mean, plus he did that MTV show. What is it called? Zach
Between
Zach
Two
Stone.
Ferns.
Zach
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 Stone.
Stone's gonna be famous. Have you seen that show?
Oh no, I have not.
Oh my god, you guys gotta
Oh,
watch
is
it.
that-
It's so
okay, I'll
good.
watch it.
Is
It's,
that like they took a YouTube character, someone's YouTube character, and made it a show? Is that what that is?
Maybe.
No,
Is it the guy
maybe
with the-
I don't know. I don't know the origin of the show. I just know that
Mhm.
like it like he wrote it. Like it was Bo Burnham's brainchild. He wrote it.
Oh, okay. then this is
Um,
not,
the-
not what I'm thinking
the-
of at all. Then
I forget the guy's name, but the guy who plays Biff from Back to the Future plays his dad.
Thomas Wilson.
Thomas Wilson, thank you. Brilliant. He plays his dad. He's
That's awesome.
he's brilliant at it. And it's basically about like it's kind of an exaggerated version of Bo Burnham where it's like this kid who just desperate like, but it's a I would say not necessarily it's about like Bo Burnham playing himself, but it's like Bo Burnham playing an alternate version of what he could have been had he not become famous, and it's basically about like this kid who desperately wants to be famous, and like he's doing like each episode
this is from 2013. Okay,
yeah,
this is a while
and it's
ago.
him doing and it's actually really hard to find. It's really hard to find.
Well, I just looked it up here. It's an MTV show too. Like
it was an MTV show. It only ran one season. It was not well received, but I think it's freaking brilliant.
I'll have to check this out. It's interesting. Actually.
It's really good. It is really good. You'll love it. It has it's single camera. It's sort of documentary style, but they don't do the talking heads bit.
Good. That's overplayed anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is kind of like single camera, like voyeuristic.
Right, just kind of off not off, just like handheld and stuff.
Exactly. And they'll have like moments where like he'll talk to the camera, but it's
okay. So he breaks the fourth wall.
He breaks the fourth wall. So like, cause he's getting like the show is him. I think he hired like a crew. If I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've seen it, but he hired a documentary crew to like follow him around while he like tries to become famous.
Okay. So
like, but
it's not just breaking the fourth wall. It's like supposed to be kind of.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like he's talking to the camera and stuff like that. But they just don't do the mechanic of talking heads.
The talking head. Okay, gotcha.
They just don't do
So
that. So he'll
they
like talk to the he'll talk to the camera and.
So much like us instituting a no halperding rule, they chose to skip the reaction shot.
Well, no, because there will be they do the reaction
no
shot.
Halperding.
No, they
No
do that
halperding.
though. They do that on occasion. It's not like overused, but the show is just like it reminds me a lot of Make Happy because it's very honest. It's like and a lot of Bo Burnham's work, I think is like outside of his original like 2 albums, which were just kind of like comedy music albums. It's very honest.
Do either of you think that a traditional 4-camera could work for like a real world style situation with like Samus and Ridley and like a couple of the Federation Marine guys and like maybe a Metroid? What do you think?
Like a
4-camera
you want to do like Metroid the sitcom?
Yeah, Metroid the sitcom.
No.
I mean,
no.
No.
I mean, you're saying that because it hasn't been tried.
I mean, what are you trying to remake? Hi Hitler, I'm home, or whatever.
Jesus.
Backstory: this is a short-lived British sitcom where it was supposed to be making fun of American sitcoms, but the main character was Hitler, and it was supposed to be that he lived in like suburban America, and he has the same problems, but it's Hitler. It got canceled, I believe, after the first commercial break.
Really?
Yeah, I think like it didn't even
died.
It's just like no.
How did that even
make quick commentary? Oh, it doesn't work. No.
How did that even make air?
I mean, that is the real question.
Yeah, who greenlit that? Like, let's do it. That 8:00 time slot on BBC Two or wherever the hell it was on.
Show.
By that same logic, we can have this sitcom. I'm
going to put that on right after Roseanne.
I'm going to air it after Roseanne. Perfect. Okay, fine. We'll scrap the sitcom. 45-minute Netflix special. Samus doing stand-up.
Samus doing stand-up? I mean, Samus doesn't talk much. Is she funny?
Yeah, what about her life is funny?
Do you ever notice about these? Do you ever notice about these Metroids?
They look like protagonist, and neither of you said shit about it. Like as a joke, you both just like went, "I don't get it." And I was like,
"I'm just trying to think of like
joke, guys.
I'm just trying to think of the jokes that like Samus would tell you. Like, you ever notice about these Metroids? They look a lot like jellyfish, and like one of them attacked me, and I ended up having to pee on myself, but I didn't have to. So now I'm just walking around with pee on my leg. And it's awkward." And that's
so
like,
she's
that's
from
it.
New Jersey?
That voice you do is so bad.
Is Samus from New Jersey now?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, Samus is from Jersey.
Samus is from East Jersey.
Oh my god.
Oh
hey,
man.
Hey, Kyle. Kyle.
All right. So no Samus stand-up, no Samus sitcom. You got to give me something here, guys. What kind of medium, other than a real dark, gritty movie, can we get?
You could probably do it an HBO show though, or something like that.
Dude,
like
yeah, it would be a really good HBO show.
Yeah.
Like HBO, because HBO needs it needs to start competing. Well, I guess it kind of has Westworld right now, but Westworld
I don't know. Westworld is
thing.
its own thing. It's a drama. It's not a sci-fi.
Yeah, it's not a sci-fi space epic. But I think they could take something like that to replace Game of Thrones. You could take that, I mean, like the sci-fi like saga thing is blowing up right now with The Expanse and Altered Carbon and then Amazon just opted in for a new series based on like a bunch of books that I think is going to be pretty good. But
Which
we'll
one?
See. God, I don't remember.
Because they did put out Electric Sheep or Electric Dreams. I can't remember.
It's not that one. It's not that one. It's another one based on a book series. It sounds actually very similar to Altered Carbon in terms of like the plot.
I mean, if it works, and who knows if Netflix is going to actually do a second season of Altered Carbon.
Yeah.
Altered Carbon season 1 was the most expensive season of television ever produced.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yep, because Netflix doesn't have to release their official numbers, but because apparently there are people who like do forensics on these things, someone looked it up and found that they data mined and like looked up receipts and shit and found that Altered Carbon was most likely by like 50% the most expensive season of television ever created.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And I believe that the thing just oozes production quality, so I believe it.
Yeah, it's everything in it is really top notch in my opinion.
Yeah, it's well shot, it's well acted.
Supposedly this Amazon series is supposed to top that. I feel like they're kind of getting into a pissing contest.
Well, I mean, Amazon and Bezos have more money than God, so why not?
Yeah, why not? Which is like the thing that kind of bothers me about Amazon original shows is, I mean, they're definitely not putting a lot of their money into it because that's not their their thing right now. But I feel like they could. I feel like they could compete. I feel like they're kind of missing out. They could be.
Honestly, what I wish Amazon did and just took market share of, because I think Netflix has the original series thing going so well.
Oh, it does.
I just wish Amazon bought a larger back catalog. I just wish they spent the money on licensing a larger back catalog. Like, I can't tell you how much it's frustrated me to like go, I would like to watch a James Bond movie. Amazon had those for like a week.
Yeah, right. You can get probably most of those. Maybe not on Netflix, but
They're
I think
not on Netflix.
Hulu has most of them.
Yeah,
Hulu has most of them. Okay, well,
I would actually.
Amazon had all of them for a while,
and then they
they dropped it because they didn't want to pay the licensing.
I would be.
You guys, you've got so much money.
Okay with it. Yeah, I would honestly be okay with like Amazon becoming like a more modern like version of television where they just have this huge like all these backlog shows.
Yeah,
maybe a few original things, but I want a place to go
so just be Hulu, but better.
Hulu,
yeah,
but
that's what Hulu
kind of
is going
sucks.
for.
Right, but Hulu sucks, and they don't buy a large enough catalog, and
their platform I think sucks. But they do have some like heavy hitters in catalog in terms of back catalog.
No, I agree. They
original series they used to have a few shows I watched. Now they really don't have. It's all kind of gone now. I mean, I guess their big thing is Handmaid's Tale. I think that's Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they got Seinfeld.
They got Seinfeld.
That's fine. I mean, people watch Seinfeld. But my thing is, I want Amazon to be doing that because I feel like that's already
because you're already going to be paying for Prime. Yeah, because you're already going to be for Prime.
Yeah, and that's a part of it, right? Is that they already have the cash flow from subscription. They already have the business model because they sell all that shit already.
Right. Yeah.
So why not just pay the licensing to syndicate all of it and just distribute? Frankly, put Hulu out of business and drive Netflix into focusing more on like unique originals and
original content, and then like a few backlog things that rotate.
A few backlog things.
Basically, turn Netflix into HBO, because that's basically what HBO does now.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I would say if Netflix is anything, it's probably the internet HBO. They have a few heavy hitters, but like their model is really interesting with how they do it, because they'll buy a bunch of like pre-made shit for cheap and then try and see how it does, see if it finds its audience, kind of a thing. And then they put money into a few
like
things.
Annihilation.
Yeah, or Titan, or like that shit.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's an interesting model. At least things are getting to see the light of day, and if they find like an audience somewhere,
they actually get distributed, because Annihilation was not going to actually be distributed.
Yeah.
They decided to can it.
Yeah, and then you get a few things that like were internet sensations that end up like Video Game High School, that ended up like I have a huge soft spot for Video Game High School.
Oh, I love Video Game High School.
It's
was
so
it because what was it? By the third season, was like Netflix actually producing the final season, or
no? They never produced it.
They never produced it.
They just syndicated.
They just syndicated it.
Yeah, they just automatically were like, yeah, we'll put it up on our platform once you're
totally
once you're
done. Yeah.
Which I was like, yeah, when I saw that.
Yeah, it's like
Because I remember watching
little
that
guy
too,
won.
like when it was just when it was just on YouTube or wherever, or their own website, or. I was like,
both.
Damn, those guys.
Rocket
those
Jump
guys
maintained their own website, but it was just basically cross links to YouTube, because YouTube had all the advertising.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly. But yeah, I think like
as a consumer, like honestly, right now, my complaint about all of these different streaming services that specialize in all these different things is that I don't want to go through 17 fucking websites just to find the movie I want to watch.
Yeah,
sure. Well,
like
I mean,
it would be nice.
That's where the hardware comes in. Then you get the Roku box, the Apple TV, and it's supposed to search across could search across the platforms or whatever.
That shit.
That's where the hardware is trying to.
Hang on. That shit don't work.
No, it doesn't at all.
Yeah.
None of that works.
Siri sucks on Apple TV. I've tried like, oh hey Siri, find this movie, and I know the movie exists on either like. On one of the things I subscribe to, and I have Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime. Like I know, but it's like, but then it just gives me the iTunes link to buy it, and it's like,
yeah,
rent this for $4.99.
Fuck you, John.
Yeah, no, it is definitely very frustrating when like, because it's always at the time like. You'll want to watch, fucking Beetlejuice, or something, and you're just like, I really want to watch Beetlejuice right now, and I'm in the mood for some freaking Michael Keaton or like Multiplicity or something.
Beetlejuice
like that.
should be on one of those platforms. That's a travesty if it's not on at all times. If it's not on Amazon Prime, Hulu, or Netflix.
Or whatever. Yeah.
You know what's not on any of those platforms currently? Die Hard.
Yeah. Die Hard, I find it routinely isn't on them.
It seems like all the Die Hards should be on Netflix. They
should all be on Netflix.
Yeah.
They should just all be on Netflix all the time. But nope, none of them, except the most recent fucking travesty that is not a Die Hard movie.
Oh, the Russian one.
Yeah.
I think was it.
So that's the thing. That's the thing about
Good Day to Die Hard, or is that the last one?
Yeah, it's a Klingon reference. It's a Good Day to Die Hard.
Yeah.
It's a Good Day to Die Hard. Kapla!
Kapla!
But I feel like...
But it's in no way a Die Hard movie. Don't watch it.
Yeah. I feel like Netflix's movie game has really slowed down. It's definitely more about TV now, which...
It's all about the original series and stand-up.
But I feel like...
the original series for sure.
I feel like
Has anybody watched Lost in Space yet?
I have not. I want to give it
to.
time. I want to have... time because I'm like The Expanse is back and I'm super into that. And,
Sci-Fi kills it with their original series too.
Oh yeah, they've got a couple really good ones. Yeah, the Killjoy.
Do you guys watch The Magicians?
No. But The Magicians. So The Magicians makes me laugh because they just came out with a brand new commercial. Apparently, they're allowed to curse on the show now. Like they've always
sworn on the show.
They've always sworn on the show.
Yeah.
Well, they have this new commercial that it's all about. They're like basically saying they're not censoring the word fuck anymore. and they're like all the fucks. It's just like each character like looking into the camera being like all the fucks. You know,
advertisement.
But what's funny
so good.
but what's funny is they bleep the word fuck in the advertisement. So it's like all the people. Yeah, because the ad they can't. It's like seriously, and it's like so yeah, they're making it out. It's like, oh, they're allowed to curse on the show now. That's cool.
I mean, they swear. I think they swear a fair amount, as I recall. I'm not sure
maybe
if they
they're
say
just
fuck.
Yeah, maybe. Because I think fuck's in its own. That's like HBO level cursing.
Yeah, because a lot of expanded
but also they might
cable
say
can say like shit and god damn it now. That's
they might
standard.
say fuck. So here's the sort of inside joke there is that they might actually say fuck sometimes, but there is a lot of sex on The Magicians, so that might be the joke. It's just that they're talking about how much fucking sex there's going to be in season 3 or whatever they're on.
Oh, that's funny.
Maybe. That's probably there's it is.
Because there's legit a lot of sex on the show.
That's really funny. I'll have to check it out now. Now that I hear there's a bunch of... I mean, you did sell me an Altered Carbon by just being like, it's a lot of titties and kung fu. I'm like, okay, I'll watch it.
I mean, I'm going to distill it to the simplest common terms here.
Like, he knows what I like.
Episode 1 of Magicians features magic sex.
Yeah.
So have that.
Oh,
I mean,
excellent.
Jacob sold me on Altered Carbon by telling me, he's like, there is literally a scene. It's like 8 minutes long of two girls fighting, and one of them's completely naked the entire time. And I'm just like, okay, I'll watch this show. And it's literally the second to last episode, so you have to watch the entire series to get
so
to it.
good, right?
But then, but like
nudity notwithstanding, that scene is incredible.
Yeah, the what's funny is like the nudity makes total sense for the plot.
Yeah, it's not like weird.
Yeah, they didn't come up with a reason for her to be naked. Like, it makes sense for the plot. Like, she would be naked in this context.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the whole time, just fucking titties and arms flopping.
Titties and arms flying all over the place. There might be a gun somewhere. There's definitely a sword.
Yeah, there's definitely a sword, broken glass everywhere.
And a robot arm. There's a robot arm going on. It's just badass.
Yeah, it's a badass scene. It's one of the more badass fights in the entire series. Yeah, and it's like
it really is.
It's like that and the 0G like fight scene.
The 0G fight scene
was really good. It was really, really good. But yeah.
Well, do you need to get going?
Yeah,
Michael?
like I think that's actually we can wrap it up.
Wrap it up right there.
Right
I mean, we
around-
didn't. I'd say the majority of this episode wasn't too much Metroid, but you know, we got it in there. We'll try to be better.
I feel
we'll
like
try to be better next time.
I feel like most of our episodes aren't going to be about like we're gonna end up spending like 10 minutes on the subject matter and then tangent.
Yeah, but just like prom night, we'll sneak it in.
We'll sneak it in.
Was that gross?
Yes.
It's a little
We'll
90s. It's a little 90s date rapey, like before date rape was a thing, and they were just like, you know.
No, I'm not saying she doesn't know and agree to it. I'm just saying.
So you said sneak it in.
Yeah, sneak it in.
By
non-consent.
Yeah, implies
I'm
that she doesn't know.
sneaking booze into the prom, guys. What's wrong with you? Or alternately, I'm having like secretive sex in a car. But like either way, I'm saying that the date agrees to it.
All right, that's good. As long as that's been made clear.
Okay, so is it better if I say just like prom night, we'll sneak it in with consent?
You can't sneak it in with consent.
Yeah, you can. No. So you're sneaking it in. So you have to have someone assisting you sneak it in. The assistant.
I guess you can sneak it in. I guess you can sneak it in if you're like, listen, baby, it's prom night, and at some point tonight, we're gonna have sex. As long as you consent to it. I'm not going to tell you.
No.
I'm not going to tell you when or where, but at some point tonight, it's going to happen.
So
do you consent? I'll wait. So
I think.
And she's like,
what you guys are missing here.
And she's just so intrigued. She's so intrigued by the mystery of like, how is he gonna do this? And he's like, you may not even realize it at first, but it's gonna happen if you're okay with it.
This is something I refer to as the masculine mystique.
Yeah.
Bringing it back.
This is what I like to call the David Blaine.
The David Blaine. Now reach inside your vagina. Your dick.
God.
All right. And there's the keys to my handcuffs.
And there's the keys to my handcuffs. Yeah. But I think the key that you guys are missing in my statement here is that the person being snuck. Oh God, how do I say this? The person who is unaware of events does not have to be the person into whom there is an entry.
That is way too much grammar. I'm done. I'm out. I'm out.
God, damn it.
To whom,
all right.
To whom with, as
I'm
foretold...
saying you're on the dance floor and nobody else knows. That's a sneaking.
That's a sneaking. Okay. All right. Sneaky. Very sneaky.
It's a sneaky.
It's a sneaky. You guys are being sneaky together. I get it.
See, that's what I'm saying. You sneak it in.
Okay.
Because you're in a packed room on prom night.
All right.
Well, with that, we'll call it a day.
Wow. Thanks, guys.
We'll,
Turning right under the bus. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
That's what friends are for.
Thank you.
We'll be back next week. We don't know our topic yet, but I'm sure we'll figure it out after we stop.
We'll decide it within a matter of a week.
Yeah.
And then
we'll probably decide it like Sunday night.
Exactly.
For that one guy that listened, I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
I really
you're
appreciate
welcome.
You.
Yeah, for that one, the one guy listening that's
Jay.
not one of the three of us.
Yeah.
We appreciate your patronage.
Yeah.
That person might be imaginary, John. I'm sorry.
And we promise it'll get better.
Buy our hats.
Buy our shirts that we don't have yet.
Buy our hats and our shirts. Yeah, we promise it'll get better. No actual guarantee of better.
Yeah. All right.
We'll
see you next time.
This was 8-Bit Comedy Hour. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Later.